Hey everybody, I'm Juan Carlos, Director of Case Management and Supportive Services here at the New Haven Pride Center, and I'm here with my colleague
Max Cisneros, the Friendly Neighborhood Latinx Program Officer.
You can't see it, but I'm smiling. I'm gonna try to like move a little bit more when I'm talking, do the whole Power Ranger thing, so you know I'm the one talking. And I want to welcome you to the Queer Ike Artist Talk. If you haven't seen it, we are currently hosting a group of Latinx queer artists here at the New Haven Pride Center who share some of our art, and the entire group of artwork is focused around talking about and having the conversation of what it means to be Latinx and what it means also to be queer and bringing those two things together. And we got really lucky. We have an amazing group of artists with us today to talk about artwork, to talk about art, and to also talk about the Latinx and queer experience. So I'm going to go ahead and bring those artists up, and I'm going to give them some time to introduce themselves. So when I call your name, you're going to get on camera and you're going to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to have this really cool conversation. I want to encourage folks who are watching live to also shoot some of the questions our way. Let us know some of your comments. We're going to be able to see them on screen. So as those come in, I'll be able to read them and address them to the artist as well. And we also want to encourage you to share the stream as well so that other people can see what will be a really amazing conversation. I want to start first by introducing Liliana, who is one of our artists, and we'll let her talk a little bit about herself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here. Thank you, Max Cisneros and Juan Carlos. My name is Luciana McClure. I am interdisciplinary artist of mainly photography. Also, I am one of the co-founders of Nestum in Connecticut, and I'm also a museum educator and currently a student. Um, and Should I talk a little about my work already or no?
Yes. Yes.
Sorry. And my work, actually, when thinking about as a Latinx queer artist, I think particularly like they each take different parts in my work. And I think personally, the Latinx experience, I haven't explored as much until the last 4.5 years. And I think that has to do with my own relationship with my country. You know, I'm from Brazil, and having a complicated relationship with my country. So that also means a complicated relationship with my identity as a Latinx artist. And I've been exploring that along with my queerness in my work when I think about both the way how I am my own subject in my work. So it kind of taps into this other part of myself, but also the vulnerability of exposing myself while trying to answer questions about, vulnerability, sexuality, and nature, and how almost like this return to myself while exploring these holistic themes around, earth, our bodies, and how are those connected, and how, we are filled with layers, and but it sometimes takes a lot of openness and shedding, and in order to really expose it and embrace yourself. So it's a little bit about, as I'm still learning as well as I go too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm.
I want to bring on Ricky now, who's an awesome artist as well, and have him introduce himself and tell us a little bit about his work.
All right. Well, that was a tough thing to follow right now, Lucia. It was just so well spoken, but I'll try. My name is Ricky Mestri, and I'm from Stratford, Connecticut. I'm Puerto Rican, and when it comes to my art, a lot of them are very personal statements for the most part. Whether it has to do with my identity as a queer artist, or having to do with my culture. It's just a lot of things that I feel like people could identify with, regardless of whether or not you identify with my sexuality or my my nationality, if you will. because I like to work with themes that kind of feel very universal when it comes to the subject matters of what it is that I'm going to paint. Whether it's different emotions that people feel. So I definitely focus on that because it's something that I can, translate onto a canvas or whatever medium I'm going to be working with in a way that multiple people from different, areas, no matter what background you come from, can kind of feel something from it and, hopefully, connect with it. And that's usually what I, strive for. I want someone to kind of, look at something that I made and get a sense of, the purpose behind it and, the importance of a certain subject that I may feel was important at the time. You tell me if I'm babbling or if I should just keep going.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great. I do want to point out that the piece that we're sitting in front of, or one of the pieces that we're sitting in front of, is actually Ricky's, and you can get a better look at it in our virtual Queer EK art tour. I want to go in and now. I want to introduce another artist, Jesus.
All right. Hi. How you doing? So my name is Jesus Morales Sanchez. Thank you, Juan Carlos and Max. I'm really excited to be here. I describe myself and I identify myself as a proud immigrant, originally from Mexico. I actually, last week was the 10th year anniversary of me coming to the US. So yay. And yeah, that's been a huge part of my identity for the last decade. So I'm a self-taught late bloomer artist-ish. And a lot of like the stuff that I do is very based on who I am as a person, not only, who I am as an immigrant, but also how does that relate to my own queerness? How does it relate to, I'm diabetic, so how does it relate to being diabetic? And how does it relate to being a working class person in the US? And just like trying to explore the overlaps between all of those identities and what are some of the struggles that I've been feeling with, whether it is just like the silence of like being the child of immigrants and having like that kind of like burden that if you're a child of immigrants, you probably don't need any more explanation. You know what I'm talking about. But if you don't, then, there's obviously certain expectations that come with family that add pressure and affect the way in which you navigate the world in which you're trying to, learn from a new culture, learn from a new society, while also holding on to that identity and that previous society and identity that you held on to before. So I like to describe a lot of times that feeling of like being too much of both of two places and not enough of either. And yeah, just navigating those emotions, those feelings, and yeah, that's kind of what it is.
Thank you. And finally, but not least, I want to introduce our last artist joining us today, Anthony.
Hey y'all. Hey Max. Hey Juan Carlos. Hey everyone else. Thank you for having me here. I'm really excited to be in community with y'all and just to push myself to share my artwork more. I live in New Haven. I'm originally from Ecuador. I'm undocumented. I'm queer. And those identities have often really played central to my experiences and to the way that I view the world. Also being a working class person and a young parent, art to me has always been a coping mechanism, a way to escape like the realities of the world sometimes, and just to feel like I can feel joy and also kind of go through a process of letting out my emotions, thinking and contextualizing my traumas. And so that is what my work has lately been focused about, and also just capturing moments. I think just like photographs, when I paint, I feel like I'm capturing a moment in time that I can look back on and think about how I was feeling, all the different senses that I was like in, and just, you know, the relationships, the kind of person that I was, and evaluating like the growth, not only as an artist, but as a person, through that. So art to me is very personal. I almost never like share it with people, which, you know, it's a process as I'm going through it, but I really enjoy doing it. So yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to point out that the piece on this side that Max is sitting on there is by Anthony, which you can see closer and more of the work of everyone speaking today, including Daniel, who couldn't be here with us today on our virtual tour of Queer. I realized that I didn't talk a little bit about my work. My work is also part of the show, and I'm Puerto Rican. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. And my artwork, to me, what I try to do with my artwork is kind of like what Anthony said, is a coping mechanism for me. I use it as therapy. I try to do a doodle or something every day to kind of get whatever emotions, whatever I'm feeling out that day and put it on paper. And to me, I also see it as a way to tell stories. When I first moved to the United States and I was learning how to speak English, I used to draw things out whenever I didn't know how to say things. So in the same way, I use my art. It's as a way of like sharing things that I don't necessarily know how to say or put into words. So that's what I do with a lot of my artwork, and it's evolved. I mean, after art school, I focused on doing a lot of abstract stuff, and now it's more sort of a blend of like cartoony / more realistic stuff. And I try to do, like I said, one drawing a day to kind of get out whatever happened that day into paper and leave it there, and then be able to go on with my day, sort of a palette cleanser. You know, one of the reasons why we did this showing is because we wanted to really sort of grab a group of artists who were Latinx and queer and were unapologetic on who they were. That's why we picked the name Queer, which is like, yeah, queer and what? You got to do the little shoulder hand thing in order to be able to say it right. So in that place, I want to ask folks, and you can jump in whenever whenever you feel. I just want to sort of reflect on what that means to you, what it means to you to be Latinx and unapologetically queer. And folks can jump in whenever, or I'll start calling on people.
He's not kidding.
We're back in school.
Well,
I think that, I mean, I think for me, I think it's one of the things that I like to explore in my work, is definitely like sexuality, but also ourselves as sexual beings, and also addressing language and stigma around that, and even so, if you are a Latinx person, if you have, if queerness is part of who you are, it's part of your work, and how do you honor those parts of yourself? You don't apologize, but you also, but to me, it's also, I like inviting people to ask questions, and to also maybe even embrace that they might carry some of that queerness inside of themselves too. And that's something that I try to tap by also thinking about, sexuality, but also desire into the work, so really, whether it is, the way that sometimes I'm layering my body with like pieces of the earth, like bark, leaves, and thinking about that, this, how, we'd have all these things that we are connected to, and and not apologizing, but also saying, like thinking about who is my audience when I'm doing this work, and that there is an audience, and even sometimes the fact that as a photographer, like I am my own subject, that already invites people to think about, like make all sorts of preconceived opinions about why am I doing that. And I always get the attention thing. They say, well, you're doing all these photos of you and they're so you're sexualizing yourself. They're very sexy, or they're I know it seems that you want attention. What does that mean for a woman to want attention? What does that mean for a Latinx woman to want attention? What does it mean for a queer woman to want attention? And the thing is, I feel that all of a sudden, it's like a dirty word to want attention. And then I respond by saying, you know what if I want attention? What if I want to be desired? And I want to invite people to think about that too, while saying, inviting, you know, people to look at it and honor these parts of ourselves, and not apologizing it. But it's still different, not different. It's difficult because it means also understanding yourself and coming into terms with your identity through the work and becoming vulnerable. um but that's a little bit of it. So it's kind of like, so that photo right there, yeah, so it's kind of like, undressed in front of the mirror, but also feeling fragmented through the image, but also the way that I'm being looked at. And one thing that I've been thinking about is like the way mirrors, looking into mirrors and the way we look at ourselves. And sometimes looking in the mirror, we don't really see ourselves, but we see like we see a person that maybe we want to be that person. We see that maybe it's part of who we are, but we're still grappling, to that image and that self that you're trying to become. So then you become kind of fragmented into your own image and identity. Does that make sense? Sorry, there's a lot of words.
No, yeah, that makes sense. And I think it's why like I resonate with your art so much, because I see a lot of it. And I love you saying like that's one of the things that you get a lot. Like, are you doing this for attention? And it's like, what's wrong with me with wanting attention? And also, like the preconceived ideas that people have around sexuality and things like that, and how often, for at least I can say in my experience, for a lot of the people that people that I have in my life, it's sometimes it's sort of a taboo subject around sexuality and sex and wanting it and being okay with it. Ricky, can you reflect a little bit also on what it means to you to be Latinx, queer, and unapologetic about it?
I think when it comes to, thinking about those things, as an artist and a creator and whatever thing you're going to use to make some kind of artwork, right. It's important that, people see things that they can connect with and remind them of certain things about themselves, and look at it and see themselves in it as well. Because, the kind of things that make us, who we are, we're not the only ones that, struggle with it or identify with it and things like that. So, just incorporating certain things that, even if they're subtle, or they're just flat out like right up there on the canvas or the image that we're looking at, or even a sculpture. The idea that, you put yourself out there and you kind of, allow the world to kind of see what it is that makes up you as a person, as an artist, your culture and all the things that, combined together make you the person you are, knowing that someone else out there also shares these similar characteristics and things like that. So it's important for people to go places and see things that they can connect with. It's all the whole like representation part of of things being created that people can understand, because it's part of them as well. So I think that's an important thing as an artist, to kind of understand that that we're presenting things that are very personal, because we understand that other people also share very similar experiences, and or cultural wise, we got a lot of different Latinx people from different places, but there's a lot of things that tie us together. I might be from Puerto Rico, somebody might be from somewhere else, but there's a lot of things that tie us, together, even if we're coming from different places. And just the idea of being queer, there's a lot of different, fragments to that word, but just the idea of knowing that you connect with it in your own way, and you're looking at work that kind of feels like, this image, speaks to me, is, I've always thought that was very powerful and very important to, like, have out there and create.
Yeah, I think that's something that's really we see in this art show. And again, just to plug in our virtual tour, when folks are seeing it, you can see all these connections and all these themes throughout all the different artists. And speaking about sort of connections and how and themes show up, I want to now talk to Anthony about how do you see, what are some of the connections or sort of themes that you think about when you think about being queer, Latinx, and unapologetic about it.
I think of the idea of visibility. I think that often through life, especially as a young person, I had to hide myself, my identity, my queerness to survive, and that ties along as like hiding my status. I always felt like you're living in a lie to protect yourself. So for me, art is a way to create that visibility and also explore parts that you've been told not to, like sexuality, like what you like, as well as like femininity. The idea that like males cannot indulge in things that are considered feminine. I love painting femme people, women. To me, it just creates so much joy. I think there's so much beauty in it, and that's why one of the reasons I painted my friend Queen Jean, who's behind you, because to me, her unapologetic, like fierce ass look is not only like so visible and so out there, but inspirational in the way that like Black trans women are the ones fighting for the rights of everyone, right? And to me, I'm just like, that is what inspires me. That is what I want, more visibility out there. And I don't care if it pisses people off. Like, this is what I want to put out there, because these are the people that deserve to be seen, when so often we have been told that we don't belong. And so that's what being queer and Latinx means to me, just like having the ability to exist and feel safe and validated for who you are.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I want to pose the same question to Jesus. What does it mean to you?
So it's one of those things in which, and I was like mentioning earlier, there's like quite a bit of an overlap in the experience of, what does it mean? How does being an immigrant shape being a person of a queer person, and how does being queer shape my experience as an immigrant, as a Latinx person, as all of the above, right? And I definitely like when Ricky was like saying that, when our art has to be like personal, we have to put ourselves out there, in hopes that if someone sees it, they will connect, they will understand that they're not alone. Like, I felt that, and that's something that I felt. I mean, I've been a fan of like a lot of the people in this very panel for a long time, and I've been like inspired by a lot of your pieces in the past, but also like those people that are not here right now in this panel, right? There's such power that can be transmitted through through a painting, through a drawing, through simply just like a sculpture that talks about what am I feeling right now, and what is making me feel this way. Anthony, you were talking about how we grow in a society that tells us, for a man it's not okay to enjoy things that are feminine, and it made me like remember a time in which I was shamed in my own family for wearing a pink shirt. It was like that much of a controversial thing for a Mexican household to have the oldest son wear a pink shirt. And this is before coming out, like, let alone the whole process of coming out, and then the whole process of like asking the questions about like my sexuality. What does that mean in terms of like who I am as a person, and how do I reconcile that when all of my life I've been living in a mainly Catholic household, where shame and where where shame was part of it, and guilt. I feel guilty that I find men attractive, and why is that? And finding those spaces to finally question those things and saying there's nothing wrong with me was honestly the one thing that potentially has saved my life multiple times. Finding those spaces where I can really say, you know what, I'm not alone, and it seems like there are more people like me. I'm not the only, Latinx immigrant child that does not quote unquote fit in. And that is just like such a powerful statement, and that's something that that I hope that I can replicate in the spaces that I have access to and that I'm in. Just being unapologetically queer and being very visibly and very actively speaking about like the fact that I am queer and I'm Mexican and I'm an immigrant. And actually, thank you for that piece. That piece actually is a little bit of that. It's like that play on like the tradition of like proposing with someone, but it's like two men, and they're proposing, the proposal is with a pineapple. Because at the same time, it's like I love tradition and like the idea of tradition, but at the same time, like let's have some fun with it. And yeah, no, like tradition has kept us oppressed, and there's some beauty in tradition, and I can appreciate that. But we're not here to replicate that. We're here to evolve it. And yeah, like a proposal can be like something beautiful and funny and silly and really beautiful among two men, and not necessarily conforming to the heteronormative like structures that we have been living and growing, and the same structures that have been telling us that two men liking each other is not natural, two women liking each other is not natural. Like fuck that. And it's so, oh, sorry, was I allowed to? Sorry, I'm not even sure.
No, Facebook just took our entire feed down because of it.
Damn it.
I think that's just really interesting, though. Like that, even now, we feel Max Cisneros here, by the way, and even now, the term unapologetic. Let's unpackage that a little bit. It's almost like there's apology. We have to apologize for being ourselves, right? So let's just celebrate this space that we could be queer, that we could be Latinx, and we could talk about these identities and all the different ways that these identities help our own self-expression come to life. And so to have these talented artists come together, and what I would want to ask is, as somebody who's like an amateur artist myself, I'll be submitting something into the next exhibit, and I have some fear and shame around my own work. What you were saying earlier, Anthony, about how you sometimes you don't want to share. I think you were saying your work because there's some fear that they might not like it as much, and so I have that. But what I want to ask you is there a piece that you submitted in for this exhibit that probably brought you to that place where you thought, I don't know if I want to put this in there, I'm not sure how I feel about it, any kind of apprehension? Because I think part of being apologetic is like okay with just pushing through, just saying this is me, this is who I am. Because if this center is really saying be yourself, then that means be fully yourself and bring all your identities. So I just want to ask, is there any specific piece that brought you in that space?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Max. I would say, so it's funny, I titled it specifically The Little Trouble Brown Boy. And it's the image of me as a child, and I have like these alien hands. And to me, the inspiration came from like a music video by a band called Sonic Youth, with a song called The Little Trouble Girl. And I always loved the idea of like this person, or like this kind of like alien being causing trouble in society. And that's what I felt like my role has been, my unwanted role sort of has been like dubbed to me. Being queer, being undocumented, I always felt like, like I didn't belong anywhere. And to me, this piece is really personal because I was looking back on, and to me this was going to be a self-portrait, and I struggle with self-portrait just out of like, you know, hating to try to capture yourself. So, and that ties in with like, you know, body issues and all of that. And then I was like, well, I'm going to try to paint myself as a kid. And so I was looking through pictures of me as a kid, and seeing like this eternal sadness, due to a variety of things. You know, not living with my parents, feeling like I was never fitting in anywhere, dealing with abuse and other sorts of trauma, and then thinking about like my place now, and being in this country, and feeling like at times hopeless about the state of the world. To me, that piece just was like a bucket of letting all those feelings out, while also trying to take ownership of like the term illegal alien. I wanted to take power away from that term, and call myself like, you know, that is me taking back all the pain, all the sadness I've experienced into something that could be beautiful, and that I love looking at it now. And it's also inspired a little bit by some of Salvador Dali's work, and just like the dysphoric deserts, and feeling like that is sometimes what life feels like. So yeah, that was a piece that I struggled with. Like, should I share this? Should I not? It's a little too personal, but at the end I felt good about doing so, because I felt it really represents a lot of who I am and what I feel.
Yeah, if I could just interject, it's one of my favorite pieces. As soon as I saw it, the illegal alien term jumped out at me, and then I felt welcomed into it. I felt invited into it. So I'm really glad that you included it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to also say that I think like to Max's question, like I think that's like something that I think most artists, I was gonna say all, but I want to change it to like most artists struggle with. Like I know I struggle with that a lot, and like that's why I sort of force myself to post like every single day, even if a piece is like a little wonky or I feel like it's not finished, because like there's this weird sense of like perfectionism that we put each other. And me and Jesus talk a lot about this whenever we do pieces. Like we kind of go back and forth. Like, what should I add to this? What do you think I should do? Like, this is not. And I think that is something that like, becomes even bigger when you're a Latinx artist, and even bigger when you're a queer artist, because you're sort of looked. You know, you have all these things, all these parts of your personality that people are always wanting, like looking at you and sort of have an opinion about. So it sort of, I think it reflects sometimes in your art as well. At least for me, it does. And for this, my pieces were kind of like small sketches, but they were like parts of my story. So like those were the parts that I was like, ooh, dude, you know, like I'm telling my story. So it was like also that feeling that you're talking about, Anthony, of like sharing these like what you feel are very intimate pieces of yourself. And like these are, you know, like this here is supposed to be me as a kid, and this is like my little pose that I used to do all the time. And I wanted to like kind of do me standing like this as a kid, because this is when I was a kid and I used to stand like this, and people would call me all these horrible names. You know, I would get called the F word before I even knew I was gay. So like I really kind of wanted to bring that forward, like that I know it's an experience that many of us have when all these weaponized words are used towards us, when we didn't even realize sort of who we were, and people were putting their view of who we were or who we are on us.
Yeah, I think that's something I wanted to touch on a little bit also, that these pieces aren't just Latinx. You're seeing other elements coming into different identities, just much like the Black Lives Matter being mentioned here. So you're seeing hints of that in other arts. And I made a point earlier during a live video about this is a very interesting moment for us to be examining the intersectionality of what it means to be Latinx, what it means to be Black and Latinx, what it means, all these moments where we could find solidarity. So I wanted to ask if there was any piece here, or really any moment in your work where you've noticed these intersectionality is coming into play and has moved your art or your work in one direction or another?
And we'll start with Jesus. Not to put you on the spot.
But totally putting me on the spot. Okay. Yes, and unfortunately, it's like one of the pieces that I did not submit because things happen. But yeah, no, I do have a couple like sketches that actually. There's one that came right after the protest that I did like the night after of the protest outside of the police station in New Haven. And it was reminiscent of these older Black woman who stood in front of the mayor and like just basically, he was giving like some BS excuse about what was going on, about why the police force had earlier that day pepper sprayed protesters in the midst of George Floyd, in the midst of like the conversations about like police brutality. What had been, the rationale behind allowing police to pepper spray peaceful protesters outside of the police station. And I remember this woman who went up to him, pulled out a joint in front of him, and just read him entirely. Just and there was like one specific quote in which she just went, "Can't you just feel our pain? Like we love our children the same way that you love your pale-faced children." And it was just like such a powerful moment to see her like not even blinking, not shivering, very solid, very grounded. Like a whole an earthquake could have happened and the earthquake would have not moved her ever. And just having like that show of power, it was one of the things that just kind of like inspired me to be like, that is the reason why we're doing what we're doing. This is why we are putting ourselves out there, because it is through our art that we can immortalize some of that narrative. So we can immortalize some of those moments and that power that she just, for the lack of a better word, like just like exuded out of her body. Like it was like tangible. You could almost like it was that powerful of a moment. So I think when we're talking about solidarity and when we're talking about how does current events and how does this day and age affect our artwork, is like our duty, especially as non-Black Latinx artists that right now we're being given a platform. We need to push forward what really matters right now, and that is we need to raise our Black brothers, sisters, and other siblings who are struggling and have been struggling for decades. And we may feel it in certain ways, and we know it as people of color, but we also need to acknowledge that we don't know it all, because there is certain privilege that comes with the fact that we're not Black, we're not perceived as Black. We're the most palatable ethnicity to the whiteness, and just naming it as it is one of the things that we need to start doing. Pushing our art to brace those, to amplify those voices that are already powerful, and just bringing them to the spaces that otherwise would not be allowed into. So I feel like I rambled a lot. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So we're kind of getting towards the end, so I kind of want to go through and ask everybody and have everybody respond to the question, what do you want folks to take from your art? So when folks look at your art, what do you want them to leave with? And I know that's a very loaded question sometimes to ask artists, but we're going to try to do our best to talk about it. And we'll start with Ricky.
Sometimes when I'm making something, like I said, originally the idea is for them to kind of feel some kind of connection and something with it. But Aside from that, sometimes I appreciate making some work that people can leave with kind of an understanding of something that they may not have been familiar with. Um, just for whatever reason, they just don't know about certain things. So it almost serves as kind of like an educational tool to be able to kind of create something that has so many layers to it that people can, look into and start understanding from a different perspective. And I think when that happens, it's another version of being successful with, whatever it was that you made. Definitely, getting something out of it from, the viewer, has always been, a big deal for me besides just connecting with it. But, sometimes like learning about something. Like I did a few pieces a few years ago about, different places in the world where it was illegal to be gay and the kind of, punishments that they would go through. And, people are just kind of in their own world that they weren't even taken into account. Well, why are you still fighting for gay rights? You got marriage. And it's like, yeah, but, there's other places in the world that, when we, have pride events and when we speak out about things, it's because other people can't. And they didn't even, think about that kind of idea that, there's still people that, don't have, human rights, So to educate somebody about, things through art is, has always been a big deal for me. And I don't know. I think that's it.
Thanks for sharing that, Luciana.
I think of what I lately, more of my current body of work, I think what I've always wanted people to take from it, and at the same time I try to take that myself, is to really like love yourself and accept yourself, and honor the body you're in, the spirit that you have, and but also to like embrace like your desire and your sexuality, and and talk about it and create language, create conversations. And I think because I've always struggled to accept my own body and myself, and I think I didn't start entering the path of acceptance until I became a mother. And so if I'm photographing my body, and I'm putting like pieces of nature, if I'm like showing like, oh, where do I have all these stretch marks where things fold and bend and turn, but also still like saying, this is really beautiful, this is who I am. And it's just like I think especially growing up in Brazil, like we grew up with such a false sense of beauty and who we are, that we must fit into a certain mold. And it breaks you. And having a boy and a girl as children, like I never want that from them. With the activist work I also try to very actively say, like, let's not apologize for ourselves, let's apologize for you know who we are, and to not have to hide it, to not allow this binary patriarchal society to like erase us and hide us, but to just really say, like, we're not gonna go anywhere, we're gonna stay here, and we're gonna stand proudly and honor it. So to me, I hope that people can take that from the work, but it's also an invitation for always having conversations about that. And yeah, that's most of it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I like agree with all of that. 100%, hands down. Anthony, what would you love for people to take with them when they look at your art?
It's a very hard question, but I would say, like, besides being able to share my story, being able to learn a little bit about myself, I also hope that folks can learn about who they are and based on like their perception of what they're seeing, and how they react to what they're seeing, as well as just being able to feel like whatever way, if they're able to connect to my work, to understand like that we all need that human connection and being able to relate to each other as well as not to, and to learn from each other. Because at the end of the day, why I think art is so important, it brings us comfort, it brings us joy, it brings a sense of understanding of the world around us, and it leaves our mark. You know, it lets people know that we existed and that we're here. So I think just also inspiring people to know that they could do the same thing, whether it be through visual art, through music, through poetry, through storytelling, you know, like sharing stories, sharing who we are is such an effective tool for everything. It can change the world. And I think through that, I hope that that's what I can do. You know, share my story and have folks reflect on who they are and to do the same.
Thank you. I'm going to pose the same question to you, Jesus. Surprise, surprise. What would you love for people to take away when they look at your art?
All right. So this time I did have a little bit more time to think about it. So thank you for that. Well, I mean, it really depends a lot of the times on like what the piece is. As you mentioned it, like JC and I usually go back and forth on a lot of different sketches and pieces, and then there's some serious pieces that I've worked on. You know, there's like the doctor piece that is on the gallery that is meant to be like a commentary on.
We're gonna go grab it.
Oh, okay, cool. It is meant to be a commentary of like current times, and like there's very little explanation of what it means right now. I think that just, you know, it's a superhero pose on a doctor fighting against a virus. I feel like I don't it's very self-explanatory in this regard. There's a couple pieces that are a little bit more political, and then there's also other pieces that are like just, you know what, like I was feeling goofy one day, and I drew a unicorn that, according to Patrick, looks like a hippopotamus. So
we got him to be on the boat that it doesn't look like a hippo, and he's not here, so he can't defend himself.
Fine. But it's a chubby unicorn. Oh, he's saying it does. It's so cute.
I can't read it, so I'm not gonna do that.
But it's all part of our journey. It's all, you know, just acknowledging our human experience is, you know, I want, like, you know, I would love to say like, yeah, no, all of my art is political and it has a social commentary, but like sometimes, you know what, like it's exhausting, and sometimes as artists we also need to give it, you know, we owe it to ourselves to just have a time to just do something that feels goofy and silly. And you know, that piece, that's one of the pieces why I chose it. And sometimes, you know, you feel daring, and the penis piece that I submitted, or the eggplant cowboy, that was one of those in which I was like, you know what, like I've never drawn a person like fully nude. I'm going for it. And that was kind of like, yeah, like just I'm venturing into, for those that know me, I'm a huge Frozen fan. I'm venturing into the unknown. And I had to do it.
I was waiting for it.
Yeah, but that's kind of what it is. And a lot of our experiences, yes, are going to be political because our very existence as queer people, as Latinx people, as queer Latinx people, and other identities is so politicized.
Yeah.
And our work is going to be politicized because it's an extension of ourselves, but also acknowledging that, you know, that there's power within those identities, that there is a lot of different things, that you know, there's also a lot of pride and a lot of joy, a lot of happiness, and the willingness to just imagine something that is better than what we have right now. And I feel like that is one of the main things that inspire me every day. It's just like the potential of what can be. And yes, maybe the moment right now is rough, it is tough, but like, let's imagine together something better, something different, something that looks like a dude proposing in the beach to another dude with a pineapple, and that being the most beautiful proposal in the world. And I really want that. I just want like people to just walk away imagining what can be done, and what can they do.
I'm gonna ask myself the same question.
Wait, no, hold on, because
Can you ask me Jesus the question?
I can ask you. I got you.
I mean, I have
because,
Max
like,
right
No,
here,
go ahead,
but
please, so good.
all right, but JC, when people look at your art, what do you hope that they walk away with?
so I just wanted everyone to see how we interact with each other real quick and make everyone jealous that my best friend is better than yours. So for me, I think like I try to make my art kind of silly, as you all can tell. I'm a very silly person. I like to laugh. I like to bring joy everywhere I go. I don't tend to take life too serious. So that's what I like. I like to have people find like Anthony was saying, a sense of comfort when they're looking at my art, and a sense of joy, and sort of like Jesus was saying, a little bit of a break from the day. I'm just gonna steal a little piece of everyone's answer, by the way. A little bit of what Jesus was saying, which is like, like a break from all the craziness that's going on, but also I like to dabble into what Luciana was talking about, which is like really accepting the imperfections that I carry with me, or things that have been told to me that are imperfections. And one of the things that used to happen to me whenever I do a piece, I would spend hours upon hours upon hours trying to get it perfect. And now there's less of that. There's more about me just putting my artwork out there. And if there are imperfections, they're beautiful imperfections or happy little accidents that happen in that drawing or painting or whatever it is that people get to enjoy. And for me, really, it's about sharing my story, but also trying to share the story of my ancestors and the people that came before me. Like right now, I'm working on a series of stories of Juan Bobo, which is like these folk tales that you're told as a kid when you're growing up in Puerto Rico. So that's really what I want people to take away: some comfort, some joy, a break from all the craziness that's going on, but also a moment of you going, huh? Where you get a story and it makes you think about what's happening in the world as well, without being too preachy. Enough of like telling you a story and inviting you to kind of get involved and search more about a story, but without like sort of like screaming and like preaching down to someone, because I think that we all know the world is I'm gonna do it, Jesus, I'm gonna curse. We know that the world is a fucked up place right now, and let's like have conversations about how we can make it better, and let's dream about how we can make it better. And that's what I hope that people take, not only from my art, but I think from this entire art show that we put together, right? Like this is an amazing art show, and I don't say that lightly. I am a huge fan of everyone who's here with us. I love you all very much, and I'm a huge fan of all of your artwork. But you are all incredible, powerful people who really gave us a lot to think about when we're looking at all this artwork. And I am really happy and humbled to be dreaming of a better world with all of you. So thank you for being a part of this and taking time out of your day to share more of yourselves with us. That's incredibly generous of all of you, and I am very grateful for that. Max, do you have anything else?
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that this is one of the many avenues that Raising Latinx Voices, not just local ones, but Raising Latinx Voices and letting folks know, ways that they could better understand this community. And there's a lot of different facets to this community, a lot of talent. This badass group of artists right here alone should let you know how much talent exists here, and that's just in the local setting. So I also want to mention that this is the center may not be open to the public. However, folks can come down here and experience this between the hours of 3 and 6 on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Make an appointment. You email info@New Haven Pride Center, and also not upcoming talk. And that's right, you can do that part. But between Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 3 and 6, you email info@New Haven Pride Center, and we're going to ask you to gently ask you to wear masks 3 at a time. And we're also going to take temps. But really, those should not be barriers for you to experience this beautiful art that exists here and allow it to transport you. It's playful, it's fun, and it's powerful.
And most of the art is up for sale. So if anybody wants to buy any of the artwork, you can also email info@New Haven Pride Center and buy some of the work there also. Max also has an upcoming talk that he's going to tell us all about.
That was a talk. That's good. That's right. And also part of the Latinx programming, I'm going to be having a talk with Rihanna Ferreira Sanchez, who is a woman activist who happens to be trans, who works does work in Tegucigalpa, Honduras. And specifically what she does is she's an activist for, she ran for office, which is major to do in a country like Honduras, which can be pretty, Catholic. But also she is an activist for the sex workers in Tegucigalpa. And that's the work she's doing now. We're going to be providing a perspective, not just about her story, but also the story of the Latinx continent, North, South, Central America. There will be more conversations about doing that into the future. But I wanted to also, thank folks for helping these talks be put together, talks like this, porque hace mucho. Poder hablar hace mucho. Poder escuchar hace mucho. So I want to thank everyone for being part of this.
Anybody have any last pressing thoughts that you feel you want to share, or maybe even plug in anything?
Maybe.
Yeah, go ahead. Plug away.
Well, I just want to also mention that Bridgeport Pride Arts Exhibit Outwork is still up at City Lights Gallery. So if anybody wants to swing down the Bridgeport area, they're on Golden Hill Street. I don't know the exact number, but they still have the work up from the Bridgeport Pride event, and it's an awesome show. We have about 17 or 18 different artists there, and a lot of different variety of types of work and things like that. So if you're in the Bridgeport area, I think the hours are from like 11:30 to 4:30 from Wednesday through Saturday. So look up City Lights Gallery, Outworks, and check out. I got some pieces there as well, and hope to see you there.
Thank you. Anybody else? Nope. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. We hope that you enjoyed the time here. Just a reminder, if you want to see the virtual tour, you can. It's on our Facebook page and our YouTube page. We have a YouTube page. We're cool. So watch that. And if you want to come in person, like Max said, you can schedule an appointment as well. Thank you all. Have a great day. Thank you all the artists for being here. I love you all. I'll see you around, and I can't wait for the day that we can just give each other hugs. Bye.
Bye, guys.